Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Carolyn. I'm an empath and psychic, and today's video is going to be everything you guys need to know about charm casting. I do want to let you guys know that I have a giveaway going on into April 11th for you guys to win your own free reading. So if you guys want to be a part of that, I'm going to have the card above linking the video where I discuss everything for the giveaway, and so you can watch that if you want to enter it. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe if you guys haven't already. I would love to have you guys a part of this family, and turn on that bell notification so you don't miss out when I post future videos. And so now, getting into today's video. First, I want to start by explaining what is charm casting. And so charm casting, very much like runes or bone casting, is where you guys are going to use charms to receive intuitive messages and guidance for people or yourself. And so what you guys are going to do is you're going to take your charms and you're going to cast them. I typically recommend either using a cloth or a tray. This way your charms don't fly everywhere, and also so it's easier to clean them up and pick them up instead of having them all on the floor. But that's just personal preference, and I always say to do what feels right for you. So if you want to put them on your floor, by all means do that. I'm not stopping you. I personally like to use this tray that I have here. I used to use a wooden box, but I didn't like that as much, and I'll explain that why in a little bit. But basically, you're going to cast your charms, and then you're going to receive the intuitive message, and you're going to use them almost like you would tarot cards, where you start to kind of paint a picture or a story. And so you can use these charms just like any other divination tool. They're really meant to help your subconscious understand the intuitive message. And so you guys can use them almost like you would an oracle deck, but it's almost like an oracle deck that you guys create yourself with the charms. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the tray and the cloths that people use when they do charm readings. The reason why people typically use a box or a cloth of some sort is because, almost like with tarot spreads, you can have different positions and meanings for where the charms fall. So some people use the top of the box for the conscious mind, and others use the bottom of the box for the subconscious mind. You can also have it set up where you have the body, the mind, and the soul, and kind of split it up into thirds. You can also use the four corners to represent different elements. So you could have fire, earth, water, and air. And so really there's no limit to what you guys can do or how you can divide your board or your cloth. It's really about personal preference, just like how there's a million tarot spreads, and if there's something you don't find, you can always make it yourself. You can always do that with your charm casting. There are specific cloths that you can buy for charm casting that have certain positions. I've seen ones that have the chakras, and so you can kind of see what charms fall in each chakra position. But there's really so many different ways that you guys can use your cloth or your tray to have it work for you. For me, I have this ocean here, so I use the shore to represent the conscious mind, and I use the dark water to represent the subconscious mind, and everything else in between I kind of just let it be what it is for that reading in particular. So sometimes if something's along here, it's getting pushed forward, sometimes it's getting pushed back. It's really what I'm feeling in that reading. But then the second thing you're going to need for your charm readings is the charms themselves. And I want to talk about the charms because I feel like sometimes people get overwhelmed and they think they need to have this really big charm collection in order to do charm readings, and that's not the case. You can start with 5 or 10 charms and use that until you start to collect more charms. And with charms, you can find charms in pretty much any place, so it's really easy to collect them once you start looking for them. If you want, you can buy charms online, but if you want to find them in your house, I really suggest looking at old jewelry that maybe you're not wearing anymore, specifically charm bracelets. That's where I got a lot of my charms from. But also, I have paper clips and binder clips in here. I also have old childhood toys in here. So really it's about whatever you find that has an intuitive message for you or that you could use for intuitive messages. And I'm going to be showing you guys parts of my charm collection so you guys can kind of understand my thought process when linking a message to the charms. Now, some people do use charms to represent different tarot cards, and so they use the message from tarot to represent their messages for the charms. I don't personally do that. Instead, I kind of use my charms more like oracle cards, where I pick my own message for them, and I don't really link them to any system in particular. But I'm going to go ahead real quick and do an example reading so you guys can kind of see my thought process when looking at the charms and seeing what the message is. So the way that I kind of do it is I hold my charms above the tray that I'm going to be casting in, and I kind of take my hands like this and shuffle them a couple times. And I do this kind of like if I was shuffling tarot. I'm going to be thinking of the question while I'm mixing up the charms, and then whenever you feel ready, I just take a handful out and cast it onto the tray. And if you guys want, you can shut your eyes. I kind of just try and look away from the bowl so I'm not seeing any charms. So I don't know if you guys saw that at first. I had a couple charms jump out, and that sometimes will happen. That's why I try and shuffle the charms on top of the tray, so if anything falls out, it falls out in here. Okay, so looking at the charms, the binder clips and the paper clips, I have them in different colors, and so I use to represent the chakras. And so the throat chakra jumped out first, and so I think that's really fitting because this video I am using my throat chakra, so that explains it. But I also want to point out that this is really cool, and I'm going to turn it so you guys can see it, how we had the angel charm fall in the owl ring, and it's like perfectly positioned like that. And to me, owls represent wisdom, and angels represent spirit, and it also represents protection. And so to me, this is really saying that if I was doing this for a reading, that there would be ancient spirit guides protecting you, but also that there is going to be a lot of protection through wisdom of yourself, where you are being very smart and calculating to protect yourself. And because it is back here towards the subconscious, it really means that your subconscious is manifesting protection at all times. And I feel like the reason why we would have the protection message is because we look over here on the shore, we have the turtle on its back. And so to me, that represents a turtle that's spinning out of control, where it feels like he can't get back up on its feet. And because that's the conscious mind, it's really saying that there could be a lot of fears or a lot of worries. And so the message of protection is saying, hey, even though it feels like you're out of control, you're really not. Your subconscious has it under control. And again, with this box, it has the color orange, which represents the sacral chakra. And because it's inside it, it feels like it's trapped in a cage. To me, it would really be representing a lot of fears and worries for this person. And so if we look over here, we have the sacral chakra, and it's over at the heart lock. And so to me, this could be indicating that these blocks and these fears are blocks with the sacral chakra, but also fears that maybe the relationship or the choices when it comes to their love life is not as secure as they would want. And especially because we have the dream catcher all spiraled out and the solar plexus chakra is on top of it, it's saying that, you know, there might be multiple paths and a fear of making the wrong choice, but because we have the solar plexus chakra on top of it, it's saying that ambition and determination is overriding it. But this could also be a little bit of a stubborn energy that we're picking up with because of the sacral chakra being blocked. It could be focused and ambitious on a path, but that doesn't necessarily make it the right path. But the fact that the subconscious energy is sending protection makes me feel like this is what they are meant to do. And also paired with this rose charm, to me, roses are plants, and so it's kind of like you plant the seeds and you let them grow. And so it's like you are planting a good path. You guys are planting good seeds because this rose is really big. It's not a tiny rose. And so I feel like even though there's a lot of fears and anxiety, this is actually a good path. And we also have the infinity symbol, which to me in numerology always links to number 8. And so that is really about good manifestation abilities and really good protection around you, especially with this eagle on the back of the quarter. And quarters also represent number 7 to me. And 7 in numerology is really about spirituality and really being mindful and a little bit of introspection. So to me, I feel like if I was reading this for someone, it would be saying you have a lot of fears and concerns, but you have good protection and you guys are making the right decision because you guys are more mindful than you think. And a lot of your worries stem from the fact that you guys are actually really analyzing things and thinking them through. Even if it feels like things are out of your control, your subconscious is taking the lead and it's really protecting you. And especially because this is my shield charm, it's facing downward, which means that you are putting your shields down, you're putting your blocks down, and so you aren't having to defend yourself anymore. Your subconscious isn't worried. And especially because we have the love charm here with the penny is number 1, and 1 is all about beginnings and new possibilities and new outcomes. And because that's in the subconscious energy, it really is making me feel like if I was reading for someone, that even though they do have these concerns, they would be protected, that there is new opportunities with love. And I feel like there could be an issue where maybe this person is walking away from someone and that's where this block is coming from, but it's okay because they're getting new love coming into their life. And so with my charm readings, I don't always read every charm individually. I kind of read them as a picture. And so that's why I don't always talk about all the charms that we have, but kind of like the big group or pile that we have. And once I get the message, that's kind of where I call the reading. And you can read however you want. I know that there are some people that they do break down every single charm. So I hope that this example reading helps you guys understand how I do my own charm readings. And hopefully you can use some of these techniques when you do your own readings. So these are my chakra charms, and so I kind of have them broken up into the different chakras. So we have the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus chakra, heart chakra, throat chakra, and then I have the third eye and crown chakra combined. And so for all the chakras, I have corresponding paper clips in their colors. And then for the throat through the root chakra, I have the binder clips. For the sacral chakra, we have this pom-pom. And then we also have this box, which if you guys saw the example reading, it's typically when the sacral chakra is blocked or you feel trapped. And so this charm kind of has multiple meanings. Sometimes it represents the sacral chakra. Sometimes it represents the block with the sacral chakra. And other times it represents the feeling of being trapped. And then for the third eye and the crown chakra, so the crown can represent the crown chakra, but it can also represent a feeling of regalness or power or success or status. And then we also have this third eye charm here, which to me is about opening up your intuition, and so it can be indicating the third eye chakra, but it can also just be talking about psychic abilities in general, or psychic messages, where there could be spirits or ancestors who are trying to contact the person I'm doing the reading for. And sometimes it's just in the reading to say, hey, pay attention to this. Your spirit guides really want you to take notice of this. So these two charms here have very important significance to my charm collection. So the first thing I want to talk about is this black ponytail. To me, it represents a circle of protection. And in my head, it's very much linked to black tourmaline. To me, it just is representing that protection energy. And so if charms fall inside of it, then it means that that specific charm is being protected, that message is being protected. But it also means that the reader, when they get this charm, that they are being protected or that they are being watched over. And then this charm here, it's actually an accessory for a doll I had growing up. And the reason why I brought it into this collection is, to me, it kind of reminds me of like a gold chain or a gold link, and so I have it representing a karmic cycle. And so depending on how this falls in the reading will really determine how that person's karma is or the cycle that they're going through. So sometimes if it falls in a reading and it's like perfect circle like that, it means that their karma is good, that they're working on something. But sometimes it will fall and it will have a couple kinks in it. I'll see if I can do it now. So sometimes it's more bent, and that is saying that they are facing more challenges or roadblocks. And other times it's really twisted and turned with the other charms in the reading, and that means that there's a lot of things karmically that they have to sort through, that they have a lot of blocks that they have to heal. And so these two charms, they really are ones that I pay attention to extra carefully when they do appear in readings. But this also just goes to prove that this is a childhood toy, this is a ponytail. You don't have to go crazy looking for charms. You can literally use whatever you have in your house. These are some of my simplest charms, but yet they are super important to my readings. If you have a meaning for it and a message for it, it's going to work. So here's a lot of my nature charms, and I broke them up into different categories to explain them better to you. So the first category I'm going to start with is humans. And so I really just have the hula girl, and she has a couple different meanings based on what vibe I'm getting from the reading. So she could represent an actual trip away or vacation, or she could also represent a time of relaxation, of having fun and enjoying yourself and really being in the moment. But if we flip her on her back, she can kind of change the meaning of what she is sometimes. Because she has her hands up by her face, when she's flipped over, you can't see that. And so to me, it almost looks like her hands are covering her eyes. And so it's like she's trying to ignore things or run away from things, not really acknowledge them. It's almost like she's burying herself in the sand. And so I really use my intuition when I'm doing readings and look at the other charms around her to really figure out what the message is when she's in a reading. And then we have the flower charms. Now, majority of these are roses, but flowers as a whole, to me, when I get them in a reading, typically it means abundance or growth in some regard, because you have to plant seeds, you have to tend to them, you have to take care of them for them to really grow. But roses also have their own meanings. So yes, it is about planting seeds, but because they do have thorns on themselves, sometimes it means that there's growth and there's progress, but it's gonna hurt you a little bit. There's gonna be a little bit of tough love. It can also represent keeping people out, keeping yourself guarded and protecting yourself. And so it's like, yes, you're working on something, but you might be holding off from sharing that with others, and you might just be keeping it to yourself. And it can also talk about having walls up. So it's really a case by case what I'm sensing with the other charms around it. But definitely it is always talking about some sort of growth or progress with making something come into existence. And then we have the stars. Now sometimes I read these as stars and sometimes I read them as starfish. And they can have separate messages depending what I see them as. has. So if it's the star, to me that represents hope, but it can also represent like something coming true, like you wished upon a star. And so it really represents like you are wanting something, you are really trying to make something happen. But when it's a starfish, that can sometimes represent that you're a little bit stuck on things, like you're holding on to things too much. You need to let it go in order to manifest it, because a starfish, they have those suction cups and they can hold on to things. And sometimes it's like you're holding on too much, but other times it can represent that you need to hold on to something more. It's like you had this really good hope and you have this really good vision. Now you got to pay attention to it. You got to hold on to it, because if you let it go, you're not going to get it. So it really just varies based on the reading I'm doing. And then we have the turtle charms. And now if you watch the practice reading, when they're on their back, they can kind of represent spinning out of control, not feeling like you have the ability to really cope with the things going on, or you feel like you're spiraling where you are not having any control over your life. Now when they're upright, to me they can represent that sometimes you guys actually just need to slow down, you need to have more patience for things, and that there's like divine timing with them. But they can also represent that something is on its way, it's just taking longer than expected. And so sometimes they actually represent things are coming, it's just not on the timeline that you had wanted. But they can also represent wisdom and age, and an experience that's going to lead to a lot of knowledge. And then speaking of wisdom, we have the owl charms, and I'm gonna hold this ring up so hopefully you guys can see it. It does have an owl on it. Okay, there we go, I think it focused. And so owls to me really represent a lot of wisdom, and they can also represent psychic abilities, or the Akashic records really. Depending on what the reading is, they can represent like you being downloaded with knowledge on a psychic level. And then we have flamingos. Now flamingos can represent balance because of the way they stand. They can also represent love because of the color pink. And they can also just represent travel and getting out of your comfort zone and really standing out and being noticed. They can represent people taking notice of you because of their bright colors. And so when I get flamingos in readings, they typically represent some sort of recognition, or some people focusing their attention on you, or you needing to take attention and make yourself known, not hide anymore, really become your true authentic self. And then with these other birds here, to me they typically represent like messengers. So depending where they are in a reading, they are really making something come into your life, or they are telling you to pay attention to something. And so they really amplify the message of the other charms. And then up here we have the moth and we have the butterfly. So the butterfly can represent change and transformation, growth and evolution. And the moth can sometimes represent that, but it also represents like a dullness in your life, like things not turning out the ways you wanted them to, where things have become a little bit stagnant or a little bit slowed down, and it's not quite what you want it to be. And so if we just have the moth alone, sometimes in readings that can represent that what this vision was, what this manifestation was, isn't meant to be. It's time to walk away from it and let it go. And then down here, I have my more mystical charms. I see that the camera's going in and out of focus, so I'm sorry if it's not in focus. I'm gonna see if I move them up, if that helps. I'm also gonna take the flamingos away because it seems like it really wants to focus on them. There we go, I think that's better. So the mermaid to me, that can represent really connecting with the ocean more, really getting more grounded. Some people sometimes need to take salt baths, and that's what this charm represents. It can also represent the mystic appeal of mermaids. And mermaids as a whole, they have a lot of different energy about them, and so in readings it can really vary based on what other charms are indicating. Sometimes it's indicating Aphrodite, or the need to love yourself more and have a lot more self-love and self-care for yourself. But it can also represent sometimes doing things that aren't good for you, almost acting like a siren, where you are misleading people, you're manipulating people, and so you have to be aware of that. It can also represent, though, having fun and letting go of expectations or what people want from you. It can also represent a sacrifice, though, because just like in The Little Mermaid, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes along with that story. And so it's really just how I feel about it in the moment. But typically when it appears in readings, it's typically there to say like, hey, pay attention to yourself, really start to take care of yourself and focus on your own wants and your own desires. And then the unicorn here, again, another mythical creature. We have this energy of healing. And so when I get the unicorn in readings for people, typically it represents like having more magic in your life, feeling happier, but it also represents like whatever darkness, whatever thing is holding you down, make you feel a lot of doubt or insecurities, there's hope coming into your life, and there's light and healing coming into your life. And so it's a charm to represent some sort of change, typically for the better. And then these are like my miscellaneous nature cards. So first we have the elephant. Typically when I get the elephant, it represents luck, and that's the main thing I use it to represent. But it can also represent sometimes stressing about the smallest of things and being overly fearful of something that is not really in your life, something that you really don't need to fear. It's about allowing your fears and worries to spiral out of control. And so when that appears in readings, it's really about getting the person to focus on what they can control and how they can overcome that. And then we have the seashell, and the seashell to me really represents needing to listen or pay attention to things. Really adapt and listen to what people are telling you to do, so you can take that advice and actually use it in a way that's beneficial to you. Because sometimes we are listening to people but we're not really hearing them. And so this charm is really indicating, hey, pay attention to either the message that I'm saying or the message that people in your life are trying to say to you. And then we have the sun charm. Now the sun, it brings a lot of clarity, it brings a lot of information, and it really allows us to see the light of things. So this can mean that there's hope, that there's healing going on, but it can also mean that we are becoming aware of things that we weren't aware of before. And so it's really about bringing further clarity on the other charms in the reading. And now we have the snowflake, and the snowflake can really indicate a time of uniqueness, but also a time where you are standing out and you are transforming and you are really like allowing yourself to shine. But it also represents being able to be yourself while working with others. It's like a group effort, but you are still special, you are still standing out. And so I really feel like when this charm appears in readings, that it's telling people to take more pride in who they are, even if they don't understand why they need pride, or even if they don't have the ability to fully love themselves yet. It's really a message saying that you are special and there's a reason for the things that are going on in your life. And then we have the palm tree. And so the palm tree, again, it can represent almost like the flowers, like planting seeds and letting them grow. But the thing about trees is that they are super strong and they are super resilient. And because this is a palm tree, it has coconuts. And coconuts, again, they are very hard and it's hard to break them. And so when this palm tree appears in readings, it can represent a lot of strength while looking super graceful. And so it can represent the ability to make things look easy and make it look like things aren't really affecting you, even if they are. But it's about having resilience to power through them. And then we have the alligator. And so the alligator, sometimes in readings, it actually looks like his tail is hitting things away. So he can sometimes be a symbol of protection. He can also be a symbol of standing up for yourself and having a lot of power with who you are and not backing down and not being afraid of things. And so it's really a charm that represents a lot of courage typically. And then with the shark tooth, again, this is protection, and it's really about like standing up for yourself and having the means to protect yourself, having the resources you need to protect yourself, because the shark tooth is really sharp. And so it's about being like very smart and resourceful with the things you have in your life. And sometimes that's just your actual brain, like not having tools per se, but having your mind that you can use to navigate your way out of certain situations. And then we have the cat. And so the cat can represent a familiar, someone who is watching over you, can represent like a spirit guide who is embodying themselves in your life. Sometimes the cat appears as a symbol that someone is seeing a lot, and that's confirmation of it. But cats also have a lot of lore about them, and they also have a sense of luck and protection. And cats are very loyal. Sometimes they don't act that way, but if a cat likes you, then they will have your back. And so this symbol can represent a lot of love and a lot of loyalty to the people who are true in your life. And so especially if someone is dealing with a conflict where they have fake people in their life, this charm can represent that they are going to meet more loyal people, and that the loyal people in their lives will stand up for them. They will have their back. And so they aren't alone, even if in the moment they feel like they are alone. So these are my zodiac charms, and so on the back of them they have a keyword that they say, and they also have their zodiac symbol. And on the front they have the zodiac name, and then they have their animal or correspondent image. And so these charms, I kind of use them based on how they fit into the reading. Sometimes they are representing those actual zodiac signs, sometimes they are representing the energy of that zodiac and not an actual person with that. And so it's really just a matter of how I feel they fit into the readings. Now these charms, I didn't buy them myself, but I actually had a friend send them to me. And so these are charms that I didn't have in my house, but you can get them in a lot of crystal shops, or you can also find them on Amazon or Etsy. So these are the coins that I use in my charm reading. So I have a penny, I have a nickel, I have a dime, and I have a quarter. So typically the way that I will read these in my readings is through numerology. So the penny represents number 1, the nickel is number 5, the dime is again number 1. But I also read it how I read number 10 in tarot, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And then the quarter is 25, which equals number 7. And so I read it based on number 7. And then sometimes, like if you saw me in the reading earlier, the back of the coin, especially with this, it has an eagle. So if it has an animal of some sort, I will sometimes incorporate that into the readings if that is what I'm being drawn to do. And so going with numerology, number 1 is all about new beginnings, and it's about like starting something, having a lot of potential. It can also represent a lot of individuality, and so it can really represent being unique and standing out. Now the nickel is number 5, and 5 represents a lot of change and a lot of transformation. It can sometimes indicate a time of chaos in our life, and so that's really going to be indicated by the other charms surrounding it and what that change is going to be for that person. Now with the dime, that is number 1 again, so it's everything I said with the penny, but in tarot, typically 9 is when you are bridging the gap between 9 and 1, number wise. And so to me, it's about endings and a new beginning all at once. So while the penny is representing a new beginning, the dime to me represents that there is something that's ending, and through that you are getting a new beginning. And so sometimes it can be a little bit of a harsher message because it means that you have to let go of something. And then with the quarter being number 7, number 7 is all about spirituality, and it's really a time of introspection, really reflecting on things and healing from things and understanding the reason and the logic behind it. And there's also a lot of faith and trust within yourself or the situation going on. But also another way to look at these coins is sometimes they are actually representing actual money coming into someone's lives. It could represent that they are getting a promotion, or they are getting a loan or something of that sort. And it also represents change in general to me, even though the nickel is number 5. We also call coins change. And so it's about having change come into your life. So these are some of my more negative leaning charms. And so the first charm here, this to me is a mask, but it is an owl charm. But I didn't put it with the nature charms because to me I see it as a mask. And so to me it reads as there is a facade or a situation that is unclear, it's untrue, there's things going on behind the scenes. Sometimes it means that you guys are taking off the mask and you're stepping into who you actually are. But majority of the times it means that there is something hidden, something being kept in the dark. And with the other charms surrounding it, I can typically figure out what that is. And then we have the Haunted Mansion charm. And so if you don't know what this Haunted Mansion is, it's actually a ride in Disney, and it is the Haunted Mansion. And so typically there is a lot of fears and anxiety because things that are haunted are typically scary. And so to me it is the fear charm. It's a charm that appears when there's a lot of fear going on, or it's indicating that the person is fearful over a certain situation. And then we have the Lockhart. Now this isn't always a negative charm, especially if the key charm that we have here is close to it. That means that something is becoming unlocked, specifically when it comes to love. But when we don't have the key, it can represent that the person is blocked, especially with matters of their heart. It means that they're not really letting people in and they're being very guarded. And then over here, I don't really know what to call this, but to me it looks like a beat up piece of metal. And so to me this can represent a lot of frustration and a lot of anger, because to me it is almost like if someone had like a big piece of metal and then they just like got very angry and they started punching it. And so to me, I always see this charm as something indicating that there's a little bit of unhappiness or tension or issues going on in this person's life. So I want to talk about the skull charms in my collection. So typically skulls represent change and transformation. They represent a rebirth, almost like the death card in tarot. And so when I have a skull appear in my charm readings, it doesn't represent anything scary, but it represents a change or transition of a time, specifically one that might be a little bit uncomfortable. It might be hard to let go of, but once they let go of it, they're going to get a lot more benefits and rewards in their life. So these are some charms I wanted to talk about that I didn't have specific categories for, but I wanted to let you guys know my interpretations for them so it gives you ideas when you're building your own charm collection. So the first charm I want to talk about is this button. And so with buttons, to me, they can represent safety and security, really holding things together, and really making sure that everything is where it needs to be and keeping it in place. And it can also represent, depending where it is in the reading, it can represent a lack of control, a lack of stability, and not being able to keep things together, really having things fall apart. And so this is really good because it indicates like a foundation for the person and where they are in their life and on this situation. And then we have the graduation cap. And so the graduation cap to me represents a level up. This can be like leveling up as far as an actual graduation where there's going to be some sort of celebration. It can also represent like an individual level up, like healing or progressing out of a cycle, especially when paired with the karmic link that I showed you guys earlier. It can represent a leveling up of oneself and raising your vibration to a higher vibration. And so the graduation cap to me is always a good indication of someone's life, and it also represents endings and closure from something. It's like a final chapter coming to an end. And then we have the dream catcher here. And so the dream catcher to me really represents someone's dreams and their hopes. And to me, each of these little taluses represent like a different path. And so when all of these taluses are typically pointing in the same direction, it means that everything's in flow and they are getting their dreams. And when it's more spiraled out, where it's more like sporadic, it can mean that they are a little bit more confused on where they're going, on what direction they want, or it can mean that they have a lot of energy surrounding them, making them very overwhelmed. But typically this is a good indicator that they have a lot of ideas within them and they're being very creative in their life, but it's really a time where they need to focus on what they are doing and how they are manifesting those dreams into reality. And then here we have these crystals all grouped together. And so to me, this represents a lot of protection. It really represents like a good energy coming into your life and really being able to protect yourself, because to me, it represents like black obsidian or black tourmaline. And then I have this ring here, and this is going to be a message that I use for all rings in general. So it's not just in particular to this one, but typically rings to me represent some form of commitment. And then if they do have a gemstone, I will associate that gemstone with the zodiac that it is typically assigned with, and also the properties of that gemstone. And so it can be representing that energy. It could be representing a person of that zodiac making a commitment, but it can also represent someone getting more commitments and getting more promises in their life. And it can also represent someone taking accountability for themselves and stepping up to their own promises and commitments that they promise people. So it doesn't mean necessarily that someone is getting commitments to them, but it's that someone is making commitments in their life. And so that is a different way to look at rings. So these are the rest of my charms, and they kind of have double up meanings, so I'm not going to talk about them all, but I'm going to look through and kind of point out ones that really stand out to me. So first off, if you guys want to get a dice, you can use that and use the different numbers to portray numerology messages during the reading, or different symbols to use. So even if you don't follow numerology, if you have certain meanings that you assign with each number, you can definitely use that in your readings. I also have a lot of charms that represent transportation, and so that can represent a change and forward movement and really getting away from their current surroundings. And then I also have a lot of heart charms, which to me, hearts represent love, and so a lot of these charms really represent love coming into someone's life, self-love, and just like self-respect in their life and their heart chakras. And then I also have like little like good mantras and positive affirmations in here. So like this dog tag says believe. I also have a heart that says be happy. And so that really just appears when it's a message that someone needs to hear. Maybe they have to believe in themselves more. So that's basically how I use my charms when I'm doing charm castings and what the charms mean to me. So I really hope that this video helps you guys out and you're able to use it when you do your own charm castings. And I really hope that this inspires you guys to start your own charm collection and do your own charm readings. So if you guys did like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, let me know in the YouTube comments down below what other type of videos you guys want to see. I want to make videos that you guys really want. Don't forget to join the giveaway if you guys haven't already, so you win your own free reading. And also don't forget to hit subscribe. I would love to have you guys a part of this family. Also turn on that bell notification so you don't miss out when I post future videos. And I can't wait to see you all next week. Have a good one. Bye.